I am speaking from our Globe Today views and news channel, and we are going to talk about some important things which happened last night, and we are going to look at the view of the world as it is today morning. Now, what has happened was that something started at the beginning of the night, and I had an occasion to discuss those issues with you in another video which I had put in the morning today. But what I am trying to talk about right now is something which happened all through the night and to inform you about the situation as it exists in the morning of the day today. Now, what happened was that the whole process, as you know, the whole attack on Gaza by Israeli Defense Forces had started on 3rd of October, or to be proper, at the night of 3rd October. Because on 3rd October, on the day of the Jewish Rest festival, there had been a big attack by about 2,000 young persons from Gaza who had descended upon the areas, the small helmets, small townships close to the border with Gaza, and killed about 1,200 persons. These 1,200 persons were old men and women, young men and women, children, and the killings were done in an inhuman manner. Something, which one does not expect in the 21st century. And what is more, they took some 250 hostages before they left for Gaza. Now, the Israeli Defense Force uh, prepared for the counterattack, and the counterattack started on the night of 3rd. The demands of Israelis were to return all the hostages, and the second demand was to bring these 2,000 terrorists to justice for whatever they had done on 3rd. Both of these demands were not acceptable to Hamas. So Israel started, Israeli Defense Force started the attack on Gaza. Now, when they started attacking, the trouble that is there in Gaza is that all the facilities for uh, attacking Israel with missiles, all their material for preparing bombs and other things with which they can harm Israel are stored in tunnels deep inside the area of Gaza. And these tunnels happen to lie under civilian areas. Those civilian areas could be hospitals, schools, public buildings, or residential buildings. Now, as you know, today's systems which take care of this kind of missile attacks, they will use a computer to calculate exactly the place from where the missile was launched, and within seconds, reverse missile will be sent back to the same place to destroy the place from where the first missile came. Now, the trouble in doing this thing is that if the place from where it was mounted is a civilian area, and within a few seconds after that, a missile from Israel should fall on that civilian area, the result is going to be a lot of collateral damage of civilians. Whoever is in that particular building is likely to be damaged, is likely to come to grief. So that was the issue. And what the Israeli Defense Force did was they would prepare pamphlets written in Arabic. They would throw them in that particular area, asking people, those who are not connected with the terrorism, to leave the area because the idea was likely to attack, because they had intelligence that in that area there were some such facilities built by the terrorists. Now, this meant that the whole process was slow, because as the intelligence was gathered and as the Israeli Defense Force decided to move into an area, they had to first inform people so that innocent civilians could be saved, and then the attack could be mounted. However, the terrorists were totally against this process. They didn't want people to leave the area because the civilians were the shields which they were using. And the net result was that the Hamas went on dissuading people from leaving the area where the Israeli attack was to come. The net result was that every single attack would lead to quite a lot of collateral damage. And the Hamas administration in Gaza kept track of all these losses. So every day they would publish the detail about how many civilian children, women, and others were killed in an attack by Israel. Now, this went on creating a public opinion in the world which showed that a lot of civilians in Gaza were coming to grief, and they were unnecessarily being, uh, attacked by Israeli Defense Force, even though they might not have been responsible directly for the attack of 3rd October. Now, this was a problem, but Israel didn't care for that. They went on ahead, and it is more than 1 year now that the process has been continuing. The leader, Yahya Sinwar, who had led the attack of 3rd October, he has ultimately been nabbed only during this week. He was assassinated in an attack by Israeli Defense Force, and they were able to confirm through DNA test that it was the same person. And so ultimately, the leader of the attack has been brought to justice. Now, what has happened in addition is that as the attack on Gaza mounted, as more and more area in the Gaza Strip was taken over by the Israeli Defense Force, as more and more civilians had to move towards the uh, Gaza Egypt crossing. A kind of big city of tents was set up near the Egyptian crossing. And naturally, when millions of people leave their home and set up a city of tents, they are not going to have an easy life. So it was a life which was very tough. The world tried to mitigate the suffering of these people by sending as many supplies as possible, but ultimately it does lead to a problem. So while Israeli Defense Force was trying to catch Yahya Sinwar, and he was mixing up with the civilians and trying to see that he would not be caught, the Hezbollah started mounting the attack from Lebanon into Israel. And their method of attack was sending the missiles. They had accumulated since 2006 uh, hundreds of thousands of missiles of various kinds and very sophisticated missiles also, and they would try to send them every day into Lebanon, into Israel. Now, the trouble was that while Israel was able to take care of these through the missile defense shield, as you know, they have a 5 layer missile defense shield, but Israel is not able to guard against the missiles which are thrown at Israel right from the border. And therefore, an area of about 39 kilometers from the border is an area which had to be vacated. And therefore, about 55,000 Israelis had to leave their homes and take shelter elsewhere. This is something which obviously the Israeli government didn't want. So they wanted these 55,000 people to go back as early as possible. And this was something which was not possible to do till Hezbollah continues to mount the attacks. Now, on 27 September 2024, Israeli Defense Forces found through their intelligence that on 3rd October, a major attack was being planned by Hezbollah and Hamas together. And this attack would be much more fierce than the attack of 3rd October 2023. Israeli Defense Forces calculated that they would not be able to accept the kind of damage which could occur because of this enhanced and large attack, which would have been mounted by Hamas, and it would have been aided by Hezbollah from the south, from Lebanon, and also from the militias in Syria and Iraq. The militia in Yemen would have tried to stop the uh, shipping in the Red Sea and in the area adjoining that, and that would have been again something which would have created some problem for the defense effort. So these were the things which were to be done starting from 3rd October. So to preempt that particular attack, the first thing that they did was they activated a system which they had installed about 10 months back to find out what was happening in the pagers, which the top leadership of Hezbollah was using. In all these pagers, without the knowledge of the Iranian government, Israel had succeeded in putting a small uh, input of a plastic explosive. Now, this plastic explosive was such that it could not be detected. It could not be detected easily by the mm, by the normal equipment which you have at the airport for detecting any metallic objects. So, as far as Hezbollah was concerned, they checked everything. They didn't find anything metallic, and therefore they were satisfied that this particular product was all right. So, all the top executives of Hezbollah carried this particular type of pager. Around 27 September, this kind of pagers were ordered to be activated. And the net result was that around 1st of October 2024, thousands of these pagers were activated, and those explosives, they were exploded in the pockets of the people who were carrying the pagers. The net result was hundreds of persons were hospitalized. What kind of damage occurred, that depended upon where uh, you know the the particular pager was, in which particular pocket the pager was there. and therefore the damage could vary from person to person. But hundreds of people were hospitalized. And before that, on 27th September, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Nasrullah, who had built up the organization and strengthened it quite a bit, had been assassinated. To avenge this particular attack, there were two things which were done. Number one, the Hezbollah sent a missile into the private residence of the Prime Minister of Israel. The TV report showed that this particular missile was only able to damage an outhouse, and the main residence of the main private residence of the Prime Minister of Israel was not really damaged. But Lebanon went on sending the missiles, and at the same time, Iran thought that since Nasrullah has been assassinated, Iran was attacked. So Iran also directly got involved against the policy which had been followed till now, and from Iran, hundreds of missiles were shot towards Israel. Israel was able to take care of those attacks because the missile shield of Israel proved to be strong enough to take care of all these missile attacks. But the Iranians celebrated the attack by hundreds of their missiles. Those missiles did reach Israel. It is another thing that those missiles were not able to do much of a damage because they were destroyed in the sky. Now, the celebrations in Iran did satisfy psychologically the Iranians that they had taken the revenge. But practically, it did not do anything. However, this kind of attacks which were mounted by Iran on Israel required a response. And the Israelis took their time to respond. It was known that Israel will respond to these attacks before 5th of November, when the election was to be done in USA, the day when the US citizens were to vote for the next president. So before that, the Israelis had decided that they would punish Iran. And the attack on Iran started on 23rd night, that is last night. And the kind of attack it was. Hundreds of aeroplanes, the best of them from Israel, along with others which would provide refueling, others which would provide other services. They took off from Israel and attacked all the anti, uh, aircraft defense facilities. So all of those defense facilities were neutralized, and it was also noticed that from a few places where the uranium enrichment plant was, some strange kind of um, you know strange kind of smoke came out with a lot of noise. So something had happened. Now, what exactly had happened was not known. So this started at the beginning, very beginning of last night. Waves of attacks were mounted, and the Iranian defense forces could not take care of them. They went on. The attacks would come hour after hour, and the Iranian air defense would not be able to stop them. Not one aeroplane of the Israelis was destroyed. All the hundreds of aeroplanes which took part in the operation and which did the operation over the whole of the night, they returned back safely. It showed the uh, incapacity, utter incapability of the Iranian Air Force in defending its territory. It also showed that the whole of Iran was available for Israeli Defense Force to attack. It showed the utter helplessness of Iran before the Israeli Air Force. And therefore, the statement which had been made earlier at the night of 23rd, which was the morning of in Kazan, where the president of Iran had said that if the supreme leader of Iran is harmed, then the perpetrators of such a crime would not be excused and they would meet their just deserts. Now, this was a statement which could be interpreted in many ways, but after the waves of attacks which Israelis could mount, after a complete failure of Iranian Air Force, after a situation where hour after hour after hour, Iran could not stop even a single aeroplane of Israeli attacking force, it was clear that this statement was actually a cry for mercy. It was a cry for mercy. It said, don't harm our leadership if you want discussion with us. It said, please do not bring any harm to us because we are not able to protect ourselves. So, by today morning, it was clear that Iran had faced these attacks as a helpless country which could not do anything to protect itself and which was totally at the mercy of Israel. We do not know how much of damage has been incurred by the uranium enrichment plant. That would become clear over the next few days. We also do not know whether uh, the possibility of Iran mounting an atomic bomb attack has now become nearer or not. Earlier, it was reported that it would have taken about 10 or 12 days for Iran to uh, assemble an atom bomb. But then we do not know now, after the damage which has been incurred by Iran yesterday, we do not know what the status is. But we will have to have a look at the situation as it moves along. But one thing is very clear, Israel has shown its superiority. It has shown that the strongest power in that region, Iran, is no match for Israel. Thank you very much. This is the information I wanted to convey, and I hope you will be able to understand the situation as it exists. The positive thing is only this, it seems Israel or Iran do not want to extend the conflagration to the whole of the region. It seems that USA is also impressing upon Israel to stop the war in Gaza. So it seems that probably we may not be in for a larger conflagration in the whole region. But anyway, this is something about which we will know in the coming days. Thank you.
साढ़े सबके कैंसिल